So hello and welcome to this webinar. This webinar has been brought together so that I can introduce you to one of the webinar mentors that I've invited to be part of this fellowship starting in January 2017. And I'm so delighted and excited and all those kind of words to introduce a colleague and someone who I call friend, Dicken Fellowship. And I know there's many people who have known who Dicken Fellowship is before, but I thought it would be really nice to get into conversation with him a little bit so that you can hear the beauty of how Dicken speaks about these three principles. So welcome, Dicken. So I thought it would be really nice for you to maybe just, you know who you are and your kind of bio and so on. So would you like to just maybe just introduce yourself a little bit to people?
Well, it was in 1986 I met Sydney Banks and fell in love with where he was trying to point people. And basically his message to me then was, you already have what you're looking for. It's already living you. It's not something you do as much as it's something that lives you moment to moment in your life. And I was very intrigued by this. I had been a psychologist for many years. I practiced as a psychologist for 40 years. I'm retired now. And I had been practicing for 10 years when I came across Sydney Banks. And before coming across Sydney Banks, what I found most profound and helpful to me in my life was meditation. And I would sit for 4 hours a day because I felt I loved exploring that quiet space that happens when your personal mind quiets down. And Sydney Banks says, if you sense what's living you, since it's already doing that, if you intuit or sense, because you can't figure it out with your intellect. Your intellect can't understand what lies beyond it. It can't conceptualize what lies beyond it, and anything the intellect conceptualizes would be an enormous limitation. For example, if I wanted to talk to you about the experience of being in love, I could give you all kinds of ideas. It won't help you one bit in terms of what the actual experience is. You could read every book on love in the world, and it won't be the same as experiencing and realizing the deep feeling that love is. And so that's how I sort of approached Sid. Was originally I approached him trying to figure out what he was saying and to turn it into a formula that I could then utilize in my work. And I kept waiting for the techniques and the how-tos and this is how you do it and this is what you have to do and it works this way. And I was really good at listening that way. But it didn't help me. It didn't help me. How do I know it didn't help me? Because later on, I started having a deeper experiential sense of where he was trying to point. And it was so vast and so beautiful, this energy that's behind life, this energy that's living us. It's infinite. How could you turn infinite into a concept without reducing it to practically an absurdity? So, but I could sense or intuit. And even in my experience, when I would sense and intuit that space within that's generative, creative, aware, wise, when I would sense and intuit that space, it would always awaken a deeper feeling of being connected to life, a deeper feeling of, if I were to put a word on it, the closest word would be love.
Yeah.
That awakens this feeling of warmth and kindness and compassion and understanding and connection. And it did not happen by formula. It was not something I was doing that made that happen. I wasn't trying to be loving. My mind would quiet down as I understood more deeply where Sid was pointing and what he was talking about. As my mind would quiet down, this deeper feeling would arise and emerge. And I found that when I was in that feeling, every aspect of my life got better. My relationship with my wife, with my kids, my relationship with my clients at work, my ability to have an impact on my clients improved. My ability to work in business improved. And again, this was not as a result of any kind of strategy or effort or trying. It was discovering something within myself that's always been there, the source of my experience moment to moment. And to touch that space, to get familiar with that space, is still to this day the most exciting thing I can share with another human being.
Yeah.
Because it surprises them. It's not what they expected. They're looking for something.
Yeah.
And it's when you go beyond all concepts that you discover what's always been true.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. And it's interesting, Dicken, because when you were saying that, because I studied psychotherapy 18 years ago, and then I did a refresher 4 years ago when I came across the principles. And I found that my best results was the quieter, even before hearing these principles, the quieter I became, the more profound the experience seemed to be for both of us. Me as someone who believed they were leading, but what I was even seeing back then was the person waking up to their truth. So even though I kind of saw a little bit like you, it was like, well, I've kind of seen this before. So that means this, this, and that. And of course, since then, I know that it doesn't. Whatever I've made up the principles to be, I'm looking in the wrong place. And I love that I just do not have a clue. Apart from what I do know is I kind of see it now. It's almost like you and I could sit and look at a brick wall, and we could determine how the brick wall is built, what kind of plaster they've made, and should we paper over it, should we do it? So we can get into the detail of what that brick wall looks like. And that's what I see happens when we try to understand really the role of thought from a human experience. All we will come across is just understand these walls. It doesn't show us anything apart from that it's a wall. But once we have the experience of what you beautifully said of living life, living you, that's how I heard you say it. We begin to see that there's a simplicity with that and a certainty with that. And then we see the true nature of living life from inside out. So we see that there isn't a wall. It's just something we've made up. Which means that when we see it from the other side, we just see the beauty of life and all its ups and downs. There doesn't become a right or wrong. It's just, oh, the experience of life is offering me this. Now, if you'd have said that to me at the beginning, when I used to listen to Sid, I was like, yeah, well, it's all right for him. How could he sit with doing that? Well, psychology would say this. But what I noticed was the level or the quality of feeling that I was having at that time. That even though when I would listen to him and I would have a, yeah, but, it kind of, I just felt as if I was backing myself against the wall. And that invited me to actually start doing what Sid was pointing us to all along. That I see really that the principles is truly about ourselves and seeing our own flow of wisdom as it lights us up through the experience of you beautifully talk about love. And I know my life has transformed way beyond anything that I could have possibly thought possible. And like you, my relationships with myself, most of all, with my partner, with my family, with my friends, with my work, with life. And I know it's beautifully what you said there. It wasn't because of something that I learned. It was actually the unlearning of who I made my identity as being. And before, I remember speaking to a client and he was like, but if I let go, what am I letting go to? And I gave this metaphor is, well, can you just imagine for one moment that I ask you to stand up? And as you're standing up, I go behind you and I say, right, fall back and I'm going to catch you. And you have this thing, no, I don't want to do that. Will he catch me? What will happen? I says, in the moment that you let yourself go, you realize that the person that's catching you is you. The principle is the gift and the invitation for you to meet you moment to moment like never before. And that was my experience of not just when I first heard 5 years ago, but every moment. Every single moment of just seeing the beauty of life with simplicity. And knowing that all this studying to be somebody, I don't have to pretend to be that anymore. I can just show up and see that when we're living life from that, there is such a grounding and an understanding that it points us in any direction that we wish to go. Any direction. So some of the questions we've had about this fellowship is you've beautifully answered I didn't even have to ask you anything. And that was when I was looking, what could I ask Dicken? Nothing was coming. And I thought, well, okay, there's where we go. And that's the beauty and fellowship with the comfortability of just turning up and seeing where the conversation flows is the gift that we give each other. That ability to learn and to grow and to understand and to deepen and laugh and love and all those things together. And I know through that understanding that we can point ourselves in anywhere. We've talked about the relationships, our work performance, the different community settings that Tony and I have worked in, as I know you have yourself. Once you have that deep sense of grounding, and that's not what you have to learn, it's the unlearning is what I say of the concepts, the beliefs that we've made ourselves to be. So that's how with this, when I was looking at who would I want to join me on this journey, then you were certainly one of the first ones, because I've always heard so much in what you say and the permission that you give people to hear themselves. But most of all, what I love about how you share, Dicken, is how you live your life. That's where I see the difference in this understanding of the gift that Sydney Banks' point is. It's not learning, but it's living life and your connection to the essence of love. And the years that I've been fortunate to know you, that's what I've seen. And that's where I want to take people on the retreats that we have, is into that essence, their own essence of love. I don't know what it's like for them, and I love that you don't know, but we know ours. And we know that in that, there is that oneness that connects us. We're not separate. So to have you sharing, what about we don't know, and that's the exciting thing, but we'll know when we get there. What exactly I'll ask you to speak about on the webinars we don't know. But I know it will be perfect, because I want this to kind of be Not tailor-made as in, well, I want to point in this direction, so I need to learn this. But to know that you can trust truth. And it's truth, it evolves us. It's been always evolving us. And that when we have that trust in what you beautifully spoke about, then we can see how you were lighting up when you were talking from there. You can just see it in your whole face. And we get to hang out in that space in fellowship. And then in life.
There's nothing as profound as sharing that space with another person. So I love your term fellowship.
Yeah.
You know, it's sharing a space that we all share anyways.
Yeah.
It's sharing, that's the paradox. It's sharing a space we all share anyways. You know, the metaphor that I've always liked, Steve, is that when we formulate our lives solely through our intellect, and I love the intellect, it's a beautiful thing. We could talk forever about the value and beauty of the intellect, but when we begin to formulate who we are and what life is solely through the concepts of our intellect, it becomes a very narrow, limited world. Especially if our concepts or our thoughts or our beliefs are negative, then it creates a very, very narrow, limited, is what we call our conditioning. In psychology, we call it a person's conditioning.
Yeah.
Where we begin to believe, I'm unlovable, I can't do this, I'm good at that, I'm not good at this is who I am, I'm not really into this. All of those ideas and beliefs, taken to be truth, create human suffering. And the good news is that I heard from Sydney Banks right away is that there isn't a person on this planet who can't be free of their conditioning and their suffering. Because it's just fabricated, it's just made up, it's just conceptual, it's just ideas that we got so involved in we thought they were true. So the fact that we can wake up to this trick, this illusion, this apparent limitation, like you said, the walls aren't even there. So the metaphor that I've liked for that is I grew up and then at a certain point I forgot I was connected to the ocean of life. And I thought I was only a little wave on the ocean. And I thought I was separate from other waves. And I thought that there were bigger waves, and I hoped that if I worked hard enough, maybe I could become a bigger wave. And I was jealous of bigger waves, and I felt insecure when a bigger wave showed up, and oh, I'm not as big, I'm not as lovable, I'm not as capable, I'm not as talented. And Sydney Banks comes along and he says, look within, look down, look within. You are a spiritual being. You are pure energy at your core. And you see if you can find a boundary or a limit to that energy. Go ahead.
Wow.
And at a certain point, if you look in that direction, it's going to hit you. Yeah. It's just going to hit you that you are connected to the energy of life. And you can intuit that this energy has intelligence because it knows how to create everything in life. And it knows how to operate everything that is created. And it's been doing that long before we showed up. And it's always doing it. So it's not something we do. It's something that just is. It just is. It's just this creative intelligence. Now, in human beings, we call that creative intelligence wisdom. Now, when we are wedded to our ideas and beliefs and concepts, our intellect. It's hard to access this deeper intelligence, this deeper wisdom. Nothing new is created in us when we are wedded to and holding on to ideas and beliefs that we think are true. As we understand the principles deeper, we begin to let go of more and more. Like you said, you let go more and more into a deeper self. And as those old concepts and ideas and beliefs fall away, we discover our connection to life intimately, and we fill with this deeper feeling of love, and there's enormous wisdom and intelligence within that feeling that guides us toward living a healthy life where we thrive and deepen, ever deepen our connection to life and to other people. So it's very hopeful, very, very hopeful. So people begin to get a sense, I'm not just this little wave, I'm part of the ocean that we're all part of, and we're all connected on this deeper level. And the experience of that connection is love, that we're all one and the same, that we're all connected on that deeper level. So that's what I like exploring, and that's really what fellowship is about, is the recognition of a deeper level of connection that we're already part of, that we can wake up to and experience.
Yeah. Beautiful. And I love yesterday when I was sitting, you spoke something just at the end there of when I was thinking of fellowship, I kept on hearing the words journey of hope, journey of hope. And it's one of the things that I've truly seen in my own life and with those community projects that we've worked on, with friends, with anyone who's heard their true nature, is the hope that it gives. Of we're not our conditioning, we're not those kind of things. I don't want to go back into talking about the form of life, because you beautifully spoke about the form has come into action. And what you were speaking about there, Dicken, is we beautifully have this part of the fellowship where we have 2 4-day retreats, one at the beginning and one at the end. And everything that we spoke about there is where we really want people to experience themselves. When we'd gone on fellowship, Tony and I, it's 4 years ago now, and Chip had started off by saying to us, there isn't a body of knowledge here for you to learn. If this is what you want to learn, you can go home now. And the shock horror on our face, because it was like, we've traveled from the UK to Canada just to be told this. Oh my goodness, it's like. And he says, but if we can allow you to see just a tiny amount of your true nature of what Sydney Banks truly spoke about, you will truly realize that you have everything inside of you that you desire, you need, and you want. And you'll find that the desire, the need, and the want will just fade away because it's been you all along. And I was like, so how do I sign up for that then? Because that's where I felt all along. So I ask anyone who is listening to this and wishes to feel their own true nature, whether it's, I really wanted to get it clear as well, is that if you want to bring it and maybe work in a business with the community works, it's still the same. But if you don't, and you just want to learn more about yourself, then this fellowship is for you also. So it's not that we're having it that there's a specific level that you have to lit. It's for everyone to actually come along. Because one of the things is that you beautifully said again, Dicken, and I've known myself, was that just when I think I know, life shows me more. And the beauty of knowing that I'm not the one in charge, but yet life is in charge of me, then it means that the relationship that I have with myself is so much more clearer, much more assertive, much more profound, and a very easy way. So that's what I'd be looking forward to, where people can just come along and hang out and really get to know themselves and each other. And what I'm excited about again is that we'll have you joining us. There's also Elsie Spitter will join us for one. There's Barb Patterson. There's Jan and Chip Chipman. And there's Tony Fiedler will join us. And what I'm really excited is on the Facebook page and at www.3plifesoul.co.uk, everything to do with the fellowship is on there. And there's even listed between us exactly the experiences that we all have, that we're all bringing to this, i.e. from corporate down to working in businesses, to working in prisons, to working with the homeless, to working with life. So everything's there for you to actually hear what we all have to bring to the table, so to speak. But thank you so much, Dicken, for taking this time out and beautifully sharing again how you see life. And I'm so looking forward to, on Fellowship, hanging out with you where we can go even more into this, hand it over to you and see where we go with life in those moments. So I really appreciate life you share, and I really appreciate you. So thank you, Dicken.
Well, thanks, Steve. I'm very excited about the fellowship you're bringing together and offering to people.
Thank you.
I'm glad I can be part of it.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so it's goodbye for now. Bye-bye.